Well, it took something pretty special to pull me out of YouTube hibernation. And of course, it's going to be the Blitzway Ghostbusters, something that we need to talk about. I want to share my kind of reaction, my thoughts, and also do a comparison in terms of what I see from the changes from the 1.0 that you see here to the 2.0. So obviously I can't do an in-hand comparison, which we will eventually down the road when those come out. But for now, I'm basing the comparison on the obviously the in-person footage you see here of my set, and then the photos that Blitzway gave us, which were a ton, and we'll kind of cycle through them as well. So obviously, not to go too much into history, these figures here are pretty well coveted for a while, fetching literally thousands of dollars for this set, or even the 3-pack, and even honestly Winston by himself. If you were chasing down him, he was fetching $700-800. If you were someone that unfortunately got stuck just getting the 3-pack, and then you obviously are trying to complete the set, he was a very hard chase in his own right. These figures being 10 years old, I mean, unless you see them in person, I mean, I think personally they hold up better than 70-80% of the Hot Toys that are currently being made. The presence that they have, especially as a 4-pack, is just outstanding, and it's just something that it just catches your eye. And it's just and being such a huge Ghostbusters fan, this is something that I'm so happy to have in the collection. And I do have the 2.0 on order as well, because I think that although I don't see much of a need of improvement for these figures, Blitzway did offer some nice enhancements. I don't think they're complete overhauls, nor do I think they needed to be. So for these figures, if you don't own them, obviously age plays a factor into how the joints hold up on the bodies, things like that. So that stuff, there's kind of two categories I put stuff in. When you're dealing with figures that are like over 10 years old and then a new version of it comes out, there is obviously natural advancements in certain technologies and improvements that you're just going to get. Like, for example, the bodies. You're dealing with figures here that, the bodies are older, so new ones are just, you're going to get a better quality body naturally for 10 years plus. So better paint applications. I mean, frankly, the quality just naturally is going to be better. I know a lot of people will take these sculpts and get them repainted, touched up, and then boom, they're perfect. So you're going to get a better paint application with these, or you should, just because of just the sake of, technique, and things get better over time. So those are natural enhancements that you should be getting that do make a difference on these figures. Like Winston, for example, I know he's someone that, frankly, it's been complained a lot that his skin complexion is just too dark, and he often gets repainted, where he's just a more natural, realistic complexion to how Ernie Hudson was in the movie. So that's just an example. And so, like I said, the figures themselves, I always thought they were great. I had very minimal complaints. Yes, I can go super picky and point out things that are not accurate. There are some things that are not accurate on these figures, such as like missing labels, decals on the packs. But the average collector, I don't want to be that guy where, oh, stop it, you're being like anal retentive. But so there's a line that I can cross, but I'm not opting to go there. They are battery-powered proton packs that use like kind of like a watch battery. One of the biggest issues with these figures, and I know it's like kind of something that maybe is an afterthought, but the display bases were horrendous. They are, without a doubt, the worst bases that I've ever seen on figures. The assembly process on these that you have to put together is just, it's a nightmare, and they really don't offer any type of real stability to the figures. A lot of these figures you see are in more museum style poses. You don't see them in like full action poses. I'm still kind of tweaking them because there's a lot of elements going on here between, the jumpsuits, the belts, the fabric straps for the owl's frame, putting the packs on, things like that. There's a lot of components going on, very complex figure, let alone whatever you're doing, you have to multiply it by 4. So there's a lot going on here. And then you obviously, if you opted for the 4 with the accessories, you do get the inclusion of Slimer. You get the barricade, which is arguably one of the most useless accessories in 6 scale, in my opinion. And then you also have the no ghost sign, which is another thing that I wish Blitzway would have given us, like an independent stand to hold the sign up. It does light up, but kind of pointless. As you can see, in the background here, I have like a suction cup hook that I just have it for now hanging up, because it is a beautiful piece, but they failed to give you any type of proper independent hanging system, kind of like how Slimer is. And each Ghostbuster also comes with his own set of unique accessories, like Ghost Trap for Ray, Ghost Trap for Winston, and you have the PKE meter for Egon, cigarettes, things like that. So each figure came with its own accessories, and then you also had more things. You had stickers, you had newspaper replication, magazines, things like that came with each figure. It was an identical pack, so you were getting the same thing 4 times over, but those are all extras that you got with the figures. Those kind of accessories you got whether you bought them independently or you got them as a pack themselves. Now, when Blitzway teased and had some photos on display, I believe it was like a San Diego Comic-Con or a con of some sort. I remember they showed these. I remember doing a reaction video to it, and we saw the new set, and there was a couple of things that jumped out initially. One was, we saw new head sculpts, like alternate head sculpts for Peter and for Ray. And then also I don't want to say it in a negative way where I say a lack of accessories, but it was a much more stripped down, bare bones accessory set with the figures. And then so after that, Blitzway went cold for a little bit, kind of showing, we didn't sure what was happening, how soon they'd go for pre-order. And then we got some kind of, we got teases throughout the last couple of weeks. And then we finally got some stuff coming out, in June. They basically were giving us a time that they were going to go up for pre-order. And then we fast forward to the actual pre-order process. And a little bit of confusion, I will say, in terms of the pre-order process. I mean, because they were boasting 1,500 limited, which is no surprise. But it was unclear in terms of what was going on with the actual allocations. And I think some people assume that it was like 1,500 maybe to the U.S., worldwide. Apparently, from my understanding, only about a third of that 1,500 was allocated to the United States. And furthermore, what Blitzway was doing was they were actually giving out independent allocations to certain authorized retailers, resellers. So there were people posting that were saying, hey, pre-order early. Like for me, I pre-ordered mine early. With a certain Blitzway authorized seller that had an allocation of 30. And so there were other people who were saying, I got 10, I got 20, I got 15. And so they were very specific in their allocations. This was pre-Blitzway pre-ordering. And then when finally they went up for sale for pre-order, I remember it was 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I didn't go for them because I already had it on order, but I literally was talking to a couple friends, and it literally sold out in it felt like seconds, or maybe even just a few minutes. Like, they didn't last. People obviously were going for the 4-pack, the 3-pack, and then you had the Ghostbusters that are being sold individually, which I know they're still available depending on, I think, on Blitzway. I know Winston is going to be the first one to go because a lot of people who already have the 1.0s are going to just chase Winston to complete that set, or those who have the Present Toys figures might, just chase Winston. So regardless, Blitzway definitely opened up a lot of SKUs. And then this time around, we got obviously the 4-pack, but they definitely changed some stuff up, which I actually liked what they did because I felt I'm not saying from a value dollar standpoint, but if you were someone that had the 1.0, there was things that they excluded in this new 2.0 set that still made it feel like you have some value. Like, for example, they gave you a completely different Slimer. They did not do the barricade. They didn't do the no ghost sign. They did not do, at least as of right now, the newspaper clippings, the stickers, all that stuff. It doesn't seem like that stuff is included with the 2.0, so you still have some value there. And I don't mean value monetarily, just something that, you feel like that you still have something that someone else doesn't. And that's not necessarily a selfish thing to say. Everyone likes that idea of have a little bit of uniqueness, so to speak. And so I like that's what Blitzway did. Unlike sometimes Hot Toys, where they'll do a direct reissue 2.0, give you all the same accessories, where your original literally takes a shit. Like, literally everything just got recopied. So I do like what Blitzway did. Also, part of it could be the price. Not releasing all those extra accessories could keep the cost down, because you were talking like $1,200, I think it was. I'm ballparking numbers for the 4-pack, which I think is a great price, actually. You obviously get less stuff and different things, so there's a little bit of a trade-off, which I do appreciate how Blitzway handled that. All right, so let's just jump into the changes that I see initially to the figures. So right off the bat, we know that we're getting 2 alternate sculpts for Ray and Peter. Ray being the first time he sees Slimer with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and Peter for when he sees Slimer and he gets slimed by him, right? Though that's the given. The other thing I want to focus on is the neutral sculpts, such as Winston, Egon. Those look like new sculpts to me also. If you go back and look at my video, Egon has a distinct smirk on the 1.0s. I almost felt like he looked like he was pissed off, where here it's definitely a different expression, a little more minimal tooling, and also obviously the paint applications, it looks more natural skin complexion for all the guys. So that I'm thinking that there's new sculpts in general across the board. It's not just the alternates, so we got those. Another thing that I'm noticing, like on the jumpsuits, there is a black lining for the zipper, which on the originals it was a tan, which was more accurate. I'm not sure why that is that way. Material quality and things like that, I can't do anything on photos. I have to see these things in hand to get a better understanding of how the quality of that is. I do expect it to be equal, if not better. I know Blitzway also mentioned in their descriptions of a rescaling of all the accessories to be more accurate. Got to see what that looks like. Are the proton packs, bigger, smaller, things like that? We got to see. Also, I am noticing as well that and it was also noted in the descriptions, and it wasn't really majorly advertised, is that the head sculpts have a rolling eyeball system, which is really important because, like for Ray, with the cigarette sculpt, you have to rotate those eyes off to the side, because if you look at the photos, and I did a comparison here, when he sees Slimer, he's technically looking off to the side. He's not looking dead straight. So that's important to note if you're just trying to make it look, screen accurate to the movie. Another thing is obviously the proton packs themselves look identical. They're still running off of, looks like the battery cell, batteries, I should say, the watch batteries. I kind of wish they were USB-C to plug them in and forget about them, but it is what it is. Slimer, as you can see here, is a complete retooling. I really like the fact that the slime drips is the actual stand holding him up. It does not look accurate to the movie, in my opinion, nor did the 1.0. They kind of met in the middle with just a redesigned Slimer, and I like the idea that the hot dogs are removable as well. When it comes to the figures, as I said, there's that minimalization of accessories. Even like with Peter, there's something I'm noticing here is the difference, lack of non-gloved hands, and also he came with a pair of gloves that were molded that actually went on his belt to fold over. So like when he wasn't using his gloves, he would sling them over his belt. I'm not seeing that here. With Egon, he gets, like I said, the PKE meter, and there was another device that he was using at the end of the movie on the rooftop, a little square device. I don't see that instrument here either. So they definitely did change up some of the accessories and maybe a little bit less hands, just because for the sake of. Ray comes with the trap, the goggles, the cigarettes, so you have those options as well. But I do remember, I'm not going to be anal retentive and count, but I do think that there's a lesser amount of non-gloved hands with this set than there was with the original. Skin tones look great. I mean, the skin complexity was definitely a big deal for me. Another thing to point out, which I'm hoping to see, is it's on the 1.0s, it's like Blitzway didn't even give a shit in trying to match the skin tone of the body to the hands. And the only way you see that, and I think you might even see it in my video, is like with Peter holding a cigarette. If you go to bend his hand up, obviously the sleeve starts to expose the actual body, and the skin tone doesn't match at all. So I'm hoping Blitzway took note of that and kind of blended that to make that look better. Also, the bases are magnetic. I like them. I like the update, but I also am a little concerned, and I hope we get crotch grabbers. I think we do, but I'm worried about them potentially falling over because they are very top heavy with the packs and everything, and depending on how you pose them. So despite them being magnetic, I do think about using a crotch grabber, but I do like the advancements. I think these are minor advancements, but I think that they're nice, and they're things that you expect, as I hinted at the beginning of the video, that you kind of expect to get. Like rolling eyeball system. I think we're getting that with like 95% of all Hot Toys and even 6-scale figures. So it's kind of expected that we get these with the Blitzways. But once again, I don't recall in any of the photos them being majorly advertised. So you had to like dig through the descriptions to really see that, which that was just an interesting thing that they kind of pushed that under the radar. But overall, I'm really excited about these figures. I'm not upset about how Blitzway kind of handled the pre-order situation. My only concern, I guess, is, for all the resellers and authorized resellers that were allocated figures, I'm just wondering if Blitzway can stick to those allocation numbers. And if, I hope no one gets their orders canceled because, resellers can't get the intended allocations. So we will see what happens with that. Hopefully the process is smooth. But, I mean, these were bound to sell out. There's people that were just missing out on the first ones. And so that's what I expect. When it comes to what I see in the future for Blitzway and Ghostbusters, I mean, a lot of people never thought that this was the set that would ever get, 2.0'd, and here it is. That being said, I really firmly believe that the Ecto-1 will come eventually. I think it will be a limited batch, a low number, but I do think that you'll see the Ecto-1, which is probably the most coveted 1/6 scale vehicle ever made. And so I think that would eventually, be around the corner. I think we'll see anything for Ghostbusters 2? I never say never at this point, honestly, just because a good hint or indication, I would say, is look to third-party companies. Third-party companies seem to be putting out stuff before the licensed companies are. Like, look at Present Toys, how they did Terminator 2. They did the Ghostbusters. They did a couple figures that they put out before, and then Hot Toys put out their versions, a little while after. And so I think that if you start seeing any third-party companies touch Ghostbusters 2, I think Blitzway will eventually possibly do them. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend I understand licensing situations, because this is technically a 2.0 of an existing set, whereas Ghostbusters 2 is a whole different IP, technically, licensing, shit like that. I mean, I'm not going to pretend to understand, but it's possible we may not get Ghostbusters 2 for just that reason, but never say never at this point. But guys, I'm really excited about this. I can't wait to get these in hand. I have my display intention options. One set's going to be in my 80 shelf, and the other one's going to be in my Ghostbusters shrine, so I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited. I will 100% be doing comparison videos on the old to the new and just breaking it all down to see, what Blitzway did overall once I get these things in hand. But let me know what your thoughts are. What did you guys cop? What did you get the 3-pack, the 4-pack? Did you get the singles? Were you happy with the 1.0? Do you have the Present Toys? Please don't tell me you have the Star Ace ones. But regardless, if you're a Ghostbusters fan, you got to be happy with the amount of stuff that's been coming out. And hopefully you guys were able to get these one way or another. I mean, ultimately, if you missed out on the 4 or the 3-pack, you just go for the singles. I mean, the money's, you may not get Slimer, but you got to get something at this point. So that's my thought process. And, I know the singles are still out there, but I do know that Winston is probably going to be the first one to sell out, just because OG collectors of the first pack who missed out on Winston are probably going to grab him. And so that's something to be mindful of. So it's not something I would sleep on, especially because I know these are coming right around the corner. So if you need to save up money to put away for these, beg, borrow, steal. But I don't think the wait time is really long. Like, we're not looking at a year and a half, 2 years on these things. But once again, let me know what your thoughts are below. As always, I appreciate the support. I am still making videos, slowly getting back into the YouTube thing. I'm not going to be going as hard as I was, but I will be making my stupid shorts. I will be making videos. I got some things queued up. I'm actually still working on my collection room. For those who don't recall, I ended up moving out from my room upstairs. That is now my son's room. I am in the basement that just finished renovation. So I am in the process of redoing my collection. And so I'll be posting videos of that over the next few weeks. But once again, I love all the support. As always, appreciate it. Thank you so much. And this is Mr. Mom Collectibles. As always, I'll see you guys in the next video.
Acknowledge me!